With TUNECORE, I'm earning big money.
No middleman. No middleman.
More reach means more fans.
More leverage with stores means more money.
Artists today, they deserve more support. You're only going to get that with TUNECORE.
My songs go farther.
More streams.
More opportunities to be discovered.
Cause I should have been under the ground or in a cell. So I ain't got time to waste, it's time to go though. And if you're really down to support me, let it show though.
Welcome everybody to the Tracktion Presents Creative Discussions for Creative Minds. And I'm Yvette Chivers from Tracktion, and I welcome Dan from TUNECORE.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all right. And welcome to everyone who's watching and listening from across the globe. Thank you for joining us. We will be taking your questions as we go through, as always. And we've got so much to get through on the discussion and the topic of music distribution.
Yes.
Indeed. It's a big one, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't, it should be obvious, but it's not. So that's what we're going to go into.
Exactly.
And that's what Tracktion wants to bring with these live streams as well, is a lot of education on the music industry as a whole, interjected with, of course, their amazing synths and DAW applications. So, Dan, your history, it's quite good, your experience in the music industry. I know that people, musicians, producers, beat makers, they love making music, but they also want to get into the industry and work behind the scenes. So let's go into your kind of experience and how you got to where you are.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's very relevant, especially because now more so than ever, and we'll go into this a bit later, but musicians wear a lot of hats. They do both the creation and the marketing. And I think that's really what sparked my interest. When I started, I started as a flamenco guitarist.
Wow.
Which was vastly different from where I ended up. But I moved into jazz, and I ended up going to jazz school for a long time, get really deep into music theory. And then I moved more into electronic music, kind of Radiohead, Portishead kind of sounding music. And that was all at university. I was learning a lot about how to create music and what it was like to be a musician. But I also it was around the same time that vinyl was coming back. And so I opened up a couple of university stalls to sell vinyl that I thought essentially that, people like me, I was very fascinated by vinyl. It kind of skipped a generation before me and was starting to come back in new releases. And so I thought, if I like it, I'm sure there will be people at university as well who might not be music people, but are interested in music, who will come back. And so that was really my first foray back into the music industry. I was working with distributors and wholesalers to buy music and ship it. As you can probably tell, I'm Australian, and ship it all the way back.
I was going to say, so this is all in Australia, was it?
This was all, yeah. This was all happening in Australia.
And of course, it's quite difficult to get vinyl on Australia, as I know, because my brother lives, and the kind of vinyl pressing out there is needed.
Yeah, it's not very big at all. So you're paying very high shipping costs to have it come out, and as a result, the vinyl is more expensive. But I think it's still very valued, especially at that time. It became clearer and clearer that it was something that people wanted and was interested in, and to see it grow over the last couple of years has not been surprising at all. Because I love vinyl. I think a lot of people love what vinyl is. And from there, I kind of started to get into marketing and understanding why people picked certain pieces of vinyl over other pieces of vinyl, and getting introduced to music. It was becoming more and more obvious. I was trying things like text marketing and mailing lists and suggesting things to people. And I really, from there, kind of wanted to understand more of how the industry worked. I'd work with distributors and wholesalers, but nothing above that. So the record labels, I could see them all on the vinyl, listed on the vinyl, but I didn't really understand what they did and how they worked.
Was this just like pure interest level then for yourself? Was it literally just you got a bug in your brain and you want to kind of learn more?
Yeah, it was excitement. I think that was what kind of drove this whole thing. I mean, it drove me to learn how play music. And then also to understand vinyl. Vinyl was excitement for me. It was amazing to see new releases come out. So everything was kind of excitement driven and interest driven. So yes, I was very fortunate to I hustled an internship at a record label called Sacred Bones.
I think everyone has to hustle, don't they, to start off with? If you've got that passion, then you have to hustle.
Yeah, it's the follow-up email, the art of the follow-up email.
Yes, yes. And it's the timing of it as well, not to be too desperate, not to be too pushy,
Exactly. So I was fortunate to land an internship at Sacred Bones Records in New York. And I also was fortunate to get my university to fund that trip, which was it just worked very nicely.
Sure.
And then also I think that hustle kind of continued in that I had 2 days at Sacred Bones during the week, but then I ended up finding 3 other record labels to work at, Revenge International, Mexican Summer, and K9 Records, who are all Brooklyn-based labels. And Brooklyn really was a great place to kind of come and seek that out. But it was great, and I learned a bunch of different skills from all of these different labels. It was super valuable to me. It was great. They were small companies, so a lot of the time I was getting a lot of insight into what they were doing, what the marketing was, the manufacturing, how they were building their direct to fan business, which was so important to the lifeline of their business. And it's very much similar to what artists could do, their website presence, networking, as well as even like the Mexican Summer, which is a bigger label, how distribution works, how they work with distributors, marketing was all very valuable. And it was a great 3 months experience, which was great. I returned back to Melbourne, to Australia after that, and began working for Remote Control, who are the representative in Australia and New Zealand for Beggars Group. So big UK labels and American labels called like Excel Recordings, 4AD, Young Turks, Matador and Rough Trade. We were doing a lot of the marketing, distribution, sales in Australia and New Zealand.
And of course, that was your, moving from the jazz into electronic. I suppose that was your love in music as well, anyway.
Yeah, I think once, I'd started. I think once I'd gone from after university sometimes kills passion a little bit. So I think I'd left jazz quite significantly by that time, and was more into electronic, but also the indie guitar kind of based music. Especially a lot of what was happening in New York, I think, like encouraged me to get out into New York and find those internships. So it was electronic and indie music was really where my passion was and still is for the vast majority of what I do. Cool. I think Remote Control and Beggars and all those labels associated with Beggars was a great fit. It was all of my favorite artists. Radiohead was in there. The band that I was in back home was basically just a Radiohead cover band.
Right, brilliant. Yeah.
So it was like very similar to, it was great to work there and learn how it worked at a bigger label, and also work with artists that I really loved and see how the label went about growing those artists. And
was it always your kind of in your frame of mind to then create your own business from that? So literally learn from the experts and then put it into your own company or your own business.
It actually wasn't. It was actually a friend who suggested that we start a record label.
Right.
I didn't have. I mean, I think that he suggested it when I was in New York and before I'd come home and started working for Remote Control. But he suggested, and I thought it was a great idea, and I was very excited by it. And there was a lot of bands at that time in Australia that were so great and were just not represented because Australia is far away. It's hard to, unless you've got like global appeal, it's difficult to get out of Australia. Sure. And so it was our ambition to kind of help Australian artists establish themselves in the US via what I'd learnt and other resources that we'd had. So these were brand new bands that we loved and cared about, and we're trying to help them build themselves a career in the US, where the US is also big enough where, and same with UK and Europe, but niche isn't niche anymore. You can have a career of fairly niche music and have a good living off of it. So I think we were lucky to come in at the time when Spotify was starting to really be a way to spread your music globally.
Sure.
And we were fortunate to make some good connections and have some success that ended up being very, very beneficial in the long run to us.
I suppose that's the whole point of this topic and distribution, is the fact that back in the day, you know, if you were in a niche genre, or indeed a country that was miles away from anywhere else, you could only get your name known by touring, which then was an expense.
Yeah, huge expense if people turned up, you know.
Yes, yeah, it was always a risk. Yeah,
and so it was a lot. There was a much more stringent system that was harder to break into. I think over the last 5 to 10 years, that's kind of fallen apart. And there's still an industry, but I think it's a lot more open, and creators have a lot more opportunity than they did then. Thanks to certain companies and marketing opportunities, and it's great. It's a redistribution of access and power to the creators, which I think is super exciting time. Yeah,
exactly. And then, I mean, I guess then what really, I mean, then you moved on to Solitaire Recordings full time.
I did, yeah. So I worked for Remote Control for a couple of years. Then I moved back to New York. I was working at a marketing agency called Syndicate.
Keep bouncing between the.
I keep bouncing. I love New York. I now live in New York full time. I'm lucky enough to do that, and it's a great city. So I just kept trying to bounce back and forth to try and make it work long term. I had I was working at Sneak Attack, which was that marketing agency. It's a music marketing agency. We work with like Third Eye Blind and a bunch of different bigger major label bands doing their marketing. But I was fortunate enough to have the Solitaire Recordings pick up enough steam that I could then do it full time, which was great. Very exciting.
Yeah. And then leading on to the distribution side of things, then, which is what this main topic is about. I mean, from this may sound silly, but from a personal point of view, or just a personal opinion, does the distribution channels, therefore, and what TUNECORE does, kind of leave out the label?
That's exactly right. I mean, historically, artists couldn't deliver. I mean, back in the day when there was, before DIY distributors, iTunes was the store to distribute to. And historically, artists couldn't deliver their content directly to streaming and retail platforms. So they had to sign with labels that could do that for them. And as a result, artists were implored to sign less than favorable deals with very restrictive terms, where they made little money even if it was a big hit. So distribution was tough. It wasn't accessible. And so I think that's what companies like TUNECORE and other companies, DIY distributors, have really tried to do. And when we're talking about distribution, just so everyone's clear, distributors help artists and labels get access to platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, TikTok, so that they can monetize their recorded music.
So it's just kind of digital distribution, not physical distribution.
Exactly. That's what TUNECORE does. I mean, physical distribution, again, it's an older system. Digital distribution's a bit of a newer one, and there's a lot more reach as a result through platforms, through like the success of platforms like Spotify, where a lot of people are using it and are subscribed to it. You can get your music up on there for everybody to listen to, essentially.
Yes, and it used to be a case of, I mean, well, I'm kind of going ahead of myself here now, but when TUNECORE and when you kind of joined TUNECORE, do those Spotifys and those Apple Music, do they have to be in existence for TUNECORE to be in existence itself? Like, was it a case of all these platforms are growing, we need to sort out some sort of way or means and methods to enable those artists to get directly on them?
Yeah, well, TUNECORE is 15 years old. So at that time, Spotify may have started shortly after that.
Yeah, about the same time, around about the same,
Yeah, but the main store was more, so it wasn't so much streaming focused, it was more retail, selling digital singles, albums, things like that. So iTunes was the big one. That was the one that everybody wanted to be on.
Sure.
But yes, without them, TuneCore wouldn't be in existence. But it was the connector. It was the opening up, the democratization of access, so that people who weren't signed to major labels, because at that time I think major labels and bigger independent labels were the ones that had access to put music up on iTunes.
Sure.
And so TuneCore was created to kind of remove that. So yeah, a lot of what we do, what all distributors kind of do, is they find and contract stores, so they get the rates sorted out. They find these new stores so that your music can be delivered to as many stores. You can monetize as much as possible.
Yeah.
They take your artwork, your music, and your metadata, and they send that to those stores. They deliver the content. Distributors will send back. Some of them send back daily data, like TuneCore sends back daily data and reports of exact amounts paid. And most importantly, they pay out the royalties to those artists.
Yeah, and it's a really simple process, and it takes out all that kind of, and it makes it very clear and fair, I suppose. I mean, another kind of maybe, this might be a question that people ask later on, but it's always a bit of maybe a rumor or a bit of an old wives' tale or something that, you get 0.00000 of a penny for every stream. But then I've just heard recently that a friend of mine, just from his track being picked up, that was released on an album, being picked up by a playlist on Spotify, he got $1,000 the other day.
That's exactly right. The per stream rate is low, but the amount of streams that go on is
really high.
Is really high.
Yeah.
So there's the opportunity to get in a playlist and have your music streamed, so it does add up. But there's also and another feature of streaming is that there's the promotional aspect, and promotional shouldn't be the only one. You should be compensated for the plays and spins that you have, but exposure, and that's what Solitaire, the label, was so about, exposing our music at that time, to as many people as possible. So that they will continue, and if the music is good, they'll continually stream it, and you'll continue to get that kind of income. Basically, what people found the difference between iTunes and Spotify or streaming was that it's a longer term payment. So back in the iTunes days, it was the week of release. A couple of weeks after release, you make majority of your money. Spotify was the long tail, so over months, over years, you'd get a consistent income of money.
Sure.
So that was the idea of how it would work.
Okay, cool. And I guess from I mean, we've got an artist coming on shortly as well to actually talk about his experiences with TuneCore and how distributions work for him. But how would an artist or producer now with their music get involved with TuneCore? Like, how does that process happen? Yeah,
so I mean, it's a full DIY do-it-yourself kind of service. So it's what happens is you just jump on the website, and as long as you've got artwork and music, and you've decided on the songs, you pay essentially, like TuneCore is a subscription fee model, and so you pay $10 for a single to be distributed globally around the world, to all of these streaming services. And again, we'll do all those things we said before, send you data about who's streaming it, send you your royalty rate, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So anybody can just jump on the website and do that.
And is that a monthly? Sorry, it's a subscription-based model. So is that a monthly subscription sort of thing? So it's like an amount per the number of tracks, or amount per number of albums?
Exactly. Right. It's a yearly though, but that's
right. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, got you. So it's as simple as that. And then also, like as you said, then you've got the backup and the support of the delivering the artwork out there, the actual metadata, and the kind of barcodes can get so confusing.
Yeah, there's a lot of the legwork that's taken out of it by distributors like TuneCore. Again, yeah, I mean, contracting a store, you can't really do that independently. They won't do that with you. Sending content is a huge job. There's a lot of cleaning that kind of goes into that. Getting reports, there's an API development. There's a lot of legwork that goes into it that's just taken out, and that's just helps artists focus on creating the music and then also marketing the music or connecting with fans. Yes. Building and connecting with fans. So that's really what we're trying to alleviate artists of and focus on the more important things.
Exactly. And then so with the kind of give an overview of TUNECORE then to everyone that's listening, like kind of like the reasons why. I mean, let's do a bit of kind of TUNECORE kind of promo.
Sure.
Why should people get involved with TUNECORE, kind of, you know, as opposed to any other distributor?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things we do well. I think first of all, TUNECORE, you get to keep 100% of your revenue. You retain 100% ownership over your copyrights as well. Again, that's different from the vast majority of signing up to a major label, for example. You can deliver as many or as few releases as you like. You can come and go as you like as well. So if you start to blow up by using TUNECORE and you're getting millions of streams a month, you can leave and go to a label and sign a label deal. The difference is with opportunities like TUNECORE is that you are going to get much more favorable terms as a result. You have the leverage, and that's really what I think TUNECORE does well. It brings the leverage back to independent artists, which I think is really great. One thing that TUNECORE does as well is we do publishing, which
that's good to know. Of course, with the sister company.
Exactly. So we have TUNECORE Publishing, which is great. And publishing is very misunderstood, but essentially you can make additional money on the streaming revenue that you'd get through traditional distributors. You can make money on the master side, which is what distributors deal with, and also the publishing side, which is what companies like TUNECORE Publishing do. It also helps get the most money for your publishing because we can do things like matching master side recordings with publishing side. TUNECORE also does, we just launched our reward system, which is like a masterclass on how the music industry works, and how you can release your music, and you get certain points and discounts and things like that through that. It's a very sit back. You can watch it at your own leisure, but you can learn a lot. I think we've also been bought about 5 years ago by a bigger distributor called Believe Music.
Yeah, because they've got a good they've got a base in London, haven't they? Yeah,
they are. They've got a base in London. They've got offices all over. Yeah. And so with TUNECORE and a lot of these distributors, it's DIY a lot of the time. So we'll provide the distribution, but the market, we provide resources for marketing, but it's a lot of it you have to do yourself. We deal with millions of artists. It's not really possible to do marketing for everybody. But what happens with TUNECORE is as you start to pick up steam, you can be upstreamed to Believe, so that who will give you a marketing person, a product person. They'll try and build you up more actively, a more active team to build you up amongst DSPs in certain territories.
It's almost like the support you get with a label, but you're still in control yourself.
Exactly, and that's what Believe is. It's kind of the replacement for a label. So, and the best thing about Believe is the deals are much more favorable. You don't give up any ownership, very much like TUNECORE, and they're short-term deals. So it's just much more favorable. They're more directly competing with the major labels, and as a result, the majors have changed their deals to kind of mimic what Believe is doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like roles reversed. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. So TUNECORE also does. We've translated our website into. I can see some of the comments are people in Germany and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
We've translated our website into 16 different languages, and it's localized for 14 countries across 4 continents, and the customer service is great. That's something that we're super proud of. And
that's an effort to do all that and translating and to make sure that it is accessible, you know, kind of in terms of content for different countries and different nationalities. It's, you know, not many companies do enough of that, to be fair.
I didn't know coming into the company how much work that is, but
yeah,
it's an enormous amount of work. So it's definitely something they're very focused on.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And then before we bring our special guest into the mix, there's a major thing to be talked about really is understanding why people, musicians, producers don't share their music. They sit on their music. And I mean, we talked about this previously, and it's a case of so many, it's confidence, but there's so much music that's sat on people's shelves, you know, in a hard drive that's just not being shared. And, you know, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my role, when I came into TUNECORE, I'm the director of US and Canada, but a lot of the time I'm dealing with creator tools and how we can get artists to create more. And it kept coming up with speaking to doors like Tracktion. One of the constant problems was, there's about, they say there's about 60,000 tracks that are distributed a day, but 2/3 of tracks that are created are not distributed. So that's you could roughly say it's 120,000 songs that are per day. Yeah, a lot. So which is a huge amount. But yeah, I've been very focused on figuring out why that is, because I think there's a percentage of those people who maybe don't feel that their music is ready, or they don't have the confidence, they don't know how it works. So doing things like this, I think like there's an educational aspect so that they can understand how distribution works. But what we've been really focused on is understanding how we can encourage artists to just put out that music. Because I think as well, there's an art form and skill in creating, but there's also an art form and skill in releasing.
You kind of almost get stuck at that point, I guess, because it's a confidence of knowing, oh, well, I'm a creator, but I don't have this not the self-belief, but the actual knowledge to be able to get it out there to the world. Exactly.
And that's what we started with. But nowadays, every independent artist needs to be familiar with both. Even if they have a team around them who are doing marketing, they need to understand how it works, because you need to make sure the skill in releasing is connecting with fans. And the more you do that, even if you don't think the music is ready, there's a skill in practicing that, so that when you get to the point where your music is 110% finished, it's perfect, and you think it's going to be a hit, you're already versed in how releasing works. Which is super important in then communicating that message. Also, I think a lot of people, they don't know where, like, you don't always know when something's going to be a hit. So by putting it out and seeing how people react to it, putting it on Spotify, Apple, putting it on TikTok, and seeing how things react, it's you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really good trial and error on your production anyway, not to be scared, because somewhere someone's going to like it. And it's a good kind of like, that kind of almost like a focus group kind of way of using the world as your focus group.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think the best ways to build that, because a lot of the time it feels like maybe more of a confidence thing and feeling like you're ready to do it. Building community, internally getting advice from someone you trust, collaborators, friends, producers, mixers, masters, whoever it is, getting that advice or that confidence to feel like, they're saying it's ready. I trust this person. I've seen people using forums, a bunch of different forums to kind of have that community where they're encouraging one another to release. But then also, understanding how releasing works. I think through things like TUNECORE Awards, where you can understand how to release music and also how the industry works, I think it's super beneficial.
That really is. It really is. And I guess a lot of the producers that I know, just a track is never finished. No one's ever happy with their track, so just finish it. And also, I think the advice that I give a lot is let a DJ listen to it, and they'll top and tail it for you.
Yeah,
but it makes it DJ friendly or radio friendly.
Yeah, it's never finished. Music is never finished.
No.
I remember Kanye. I think it was The Life of Pablo. He put it out a couple of years ago, and then like a week later, he took it down and put up a new version, because it's never finished. No art is finished. And so, I don't know, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start putting things out. I feel like you hear that narrative all the time of huge musicians with hits saying that, we put it out and then 10 years later, we wish we would have written that song differently. And, so when is it? Yeah, exactly. When is it finished? Everybody else loved it. And they still love it. So it's interesting to see.
And also, it's a case of if you've got this back, a lot of producers, and I know of the Tracktion the community and the waveform community, they just like creating music. It's not necessarily to sell it maybe out there, or not to sell it, but I think obviously it's good to earn money from your music, but not for the fame. A lot of people don't want the fame, but it's a case of you never know what syncing opportunities you might get from it being on Spotify.
Totally.
Or another platform, like similar to that through TUNECORE. Like if an advert picks up on it, or a marketing agency or anything like that, it could just be some beats and a melody that isn't even a vocal song or a hit song or a radio song.
Definitely. You never know where it's going to take you. And like the first step to doing that is sharing it. You do have to share it and make it accessible to people. That is the number one way to do it. Exactly.
Before we bring on our special guest, I just want to go through the questions. We've got people, from Netherlands, we've got Brazil watching in. And there's a question here for you, Dan. I'm just going to pop it up on the screen here. From Chris, there seems to be a current aggregator model of uploading your music. What makes this different from an independent artist, and what resources do you provide for marketing? So just kind of recap on that.
Definitely. So an aggregator, just to clarify, is more or less what TUNECORE does. Aggregator and distributor. An aggregator gets it up online for you, and all those things that I mentioned. A distributor does marketing as well. So we have a lot of self-service marketing tools as well that will help you get on blogs, collect emails, for example, do pre-saves. There's a lot of self-service marketing that we do provide for artists as well.
That's good. That's good, because I think that's another thing that people perhaps are a little bit tentative of, is the whole marketing that you have to do after you've, distributed.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the TUNECORE reward system as well. What do you do after? Okay, I've put it up. Now what do I do? So we're very focused on helping artists, providing tools for them to do that, but also helping them with the education and the knowledge of how that works.
Exactly. And just say hello, everyone, for joining us. Still, we've got from Finland, from Milwaukee. Was it Milwaukee? Brilliant. Keep the questions coming in. Thanks for that question, Chris. And we're now going to introduce our special guest, which Dan has kindly invited onto the stream. And this is Beats by J Black. This is Jimmy. Hello.
Oh, I think you still might be on mute.
Yes.
All right, we're about now. Can you hear me now?
All good. Yeah,
Got
all
you.
perfect. All perfect.
Awesome.
So I will kind of let you two chat for a bit, but I'm going to quickly let people know that Beats by J Black is an artist that uses TUNECORE, works with Dan at TUNECORE, and basically we wanted to invite Jimmy onto the stream to really show from an artist's point of view how distribution has benefited your career and specifically through TUNECORE. So I'll kind of let you two carry on the chats, and I'll check the questions as they come in.
Great.
Awesome.
Jimmy, do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself as an artist and what you do?
Well, my name is Beats by J Black. Real name is Jimmy Stanford. I've been making beats and producing for about, I want to say 10 years safely now, off and on. It just started getting a little serious about 4 or 5 years ago. I've have an interesting approach on producing. I actually like to finger drum and kind of tap out my beats, and that's kind of what got me a little bit farther in the producing world. And then also I've been with TUNECORE for about 5 years now, and it's really cool because guys like me who don't know necessarily, or at that time didn't really know necessarily, if you wanted to go so far or not signed to a label, it gives you that opportunity to put your music out and not think about it and get it out to the world and kind of get that same type of feedback and, leave that promotion to you. I've produced for artists such as 2 Chainz, Ty Dolla $ign, worked with Wayne Brady, Timberland, a lot of guys in the arsenal that I'm pretty cool people to work with. And what I do mostly for a living is I teach finger drumming. That's what I do. Right through how we're communicating right now, just through a video chat service. And I show people how I navigate on the MPC and how I pretty much turn this thing into an instrument.
Beautiful. How did you develop as an artist? I know you said you work with 2 Chainz, Timberland. How did you get to that point? What was it like to first start releasing music and getting to that point?
What was it like to start? It was one of those things where I guess I had a different approach on it. My parents were, they were very on me about getting stuff done. So music was more of a hobby to me. So the way that I approached music was I wasn't necessarily always sourcing out to get my music to the bigger artists. So I've been in fortunate situations where the artists have found me. So they kind of turned me into the artist that works with people, if that makes sense. I wasn't really going into the game trying to get my beats out there like that. That wasn't really my goal. Like I said, it was a hobby. It was just something I like to do for fun. I actually did IT before this.
Wow. And so you were putting out music before they found you. It was just up on the internet. People had shared it, and they approached you a lot of the time?
Well, yeah, the power of social media, man. You know, just me kind of making the videos of me finger drumming and smiling and making pretty cool beats, and it started having the likes of some of these really bigger artists that'll reach out to me, or they'll have their managers reach out to me and say, like, you know, is this just for fun, or do you actually make beats? You know, like, do you do this? Because we want some, you know what I'm saying? So it was just kind of one of those things where opportunities would randomly grow, just kind of based on the social media experience, just having my videos out.
It's in the music industry, it's known as happy mistake, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, lots of happy mistakes happen. Like, you know, make beats and you don't realize it's going to be something bigger than what you thought it was going to be.
Right, absolutely.
Did you feel like your music was finished when you released it? I know you said your parents were on you to get stuff done, but did you feel like it was finished?
Yeah. You know, I feel like for every artist, we never feel like it's finished, right? But I feel like it was finished enough, you know? I think anytime we're sitting here mastering tracks and beating our head up towards it, you kind of see that, like, you almost start losing, like, the feel of the track, you know, like, in a way, almost like get tired of hearing it, you know? Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't say it was, I mean, maybe my first album, because I spent a lot of money on getting it engineered. So I would definitely say, like, my first album that I put out with TUNECORE was pretty finished. But after that, I kind of, you know, after I kind of built a little bit of a fan base, I was just like, oh, you guys are going to get what you get, you know? Because, you know, I did kind of learn that just kind of being in the back page in the industry too as well. I've seen that a lot of stuff isn't necessarily finished either.
Definitely. Yeah.
Before
we touch on that, were you working with certain mixing engineers, mastering engineers that were encouraging, saying this is good, or were you doing that all yourself? Did you have collaborators that were kind of encouraging you?
You know, because I'm fortunate to be around a lot of great engineers who are just really great at their job, and I'm always one of those people, like, you know, I let people be great at their job, so I don't really try to dibble and dab too much into the engineering. I'm really good at gain staging and just knowing, okay, these frequencies are too loud, or this is too quiet, or just kind of what hits the ear. It's mostly just about really what hits the ear, you know, what sounds good to the ear. There's different frequencies, and you just kind of know. I think that's one gift that I have, is I can kind of hear and be like, okay, that sounds good. You know, I don't need, you know, 100 compressors on here. I don't need to do the whole EQ trick for this. I think the point is going to be made, and sometimes a bit of grunginess, or sometimes that little bit of rawness is kind of what people like. Sometimes it kind of it hits the ear a little different.
Definitely. And yeah, just going back to your point, mixing and mastering completely necessary for a release piece of music.
I guess it depends on the situation. If you're an independent artist that's just trying to start out and get your name heard, you know, you know, I'm proof of it. I've seen a lot of people proof of it. You can be a really talented artist, a great singer, great engineer, all that, but, you know, it takes a lot of time for you to even really get that heavy traction that you want. It just does. You just have to put in the hours and the time. So I always say, don't, especially at your beginning stages, don't burn yourself out and do that, because you might burn yourself out early in your career. You know, right now, when you're just starting off independently, you want that volume. You want to push out as much as you can. So if it's not all the way finished, it's okay. Get that track out, because 9 times out of 10, that track that you're so worried about is not going to be the one that's going to pop for you. It might, and I hope it does, but reality, if you're not putting in the hours that you're supposed to, then it just doesn't work like that, you know?
Yeah.
I've been in a position where you know, I've been doing this for a long time and I have lots of connections and stuff like that. And of course I try to jump people ahead and I'm like, hey man, take a look at this person, take a look at this. Isn't this really good, right? And they're just like, yeah, but it ain't ready yet, you know? And it's just like, oh, wow. Like, you know, this person's way better than where I was when I started. And I'm thinking that's, you know, you just kind of, you know, we all make this notion in our head, like, oh man, that's going to go viral. That's going to blow up. And this is going to be the one, or, you know, we just have this whole thing. But if you ask anybody, or if you've seen, the one is really the one that, you know, people kind of go to sleep on, the one that people really don't think that's going to be the one that, you know, the one that's more natural, the one that, you know, you kind of let go and say, you know what, I really don't care what this does or not. I don't care if this blows up or not. I feel it. It feels good to me. The people around me, the vibe was good when I made it. I'm going to put it out and see if the world feels the same energy. And 9 out of 10, that is the energy that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think it's a balance of like quantity and quality? Like you're never going to have the most quality, but there is benefit in putting stuff out consistently, building fans, engaging fans with new music.
One thing that I learned that, you know, if you stay consistent, a lot of the right pieces are going to start moving around you to help you out with the quality, if that makes sense. So, you know, starting off, I'm not saying that I always felt like my beats were already pretty good, but as I kept getting better, you'll start meeting engineers or meeting, you know, people who do better melodies than I can and say, you know what, how about you focus on the drums and I focus on the melody and let's just get this thing moving. You know what I'm saying? Because I see your workflow and I see your work ethic. People are going to want to jump in and kind of help those things out. Kind of like, you know, like a branch like TuneCore that can, you know, let you focus on more of your creation instead of how do I get this on iTunes? How do I get this on this playlist? How do I get this on YouTube? You know, things like that just start coming around as, you know, you guys wouldn't create this platform if there wasn't a heavy volume of music in the first place. You know what I mean? You have to see a market in it and go, wow, there's a lot of people putting out music. How about we do this so we can help all these people here, because there is a mass of people that are actually doing this, putting out this music, and help them put out their music on these platforms.
Definitely.
I've got a quick question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Kind of what you said about the fact that when you got kind of spotted or you got kind of like contacted by these various people that you've been working with, and that was, how long ago was that? 10 years ago, was it? Or
when I got contacted?
Yeah, when you first kind of with your finger beats and everything. How long ago was that?
Well, when I just first started about 10 years ago, just after high school. But I didn't start getting reached out until like about 5 years ago. Okay, so do you think there's a difference, even in that short space of time, between the way that you can get picked up now? So there's so many more people in the industry, so many people more online, so much more on social media, so much more saturated. Do you think you were lucky to have that opportunity 5-10 years ago as opposed to now? Yeah, yes and no. I still feel like there's still the work factor of it. Like, you know, I still even feel like even with it being saturated now, as long as you still really kind of, I think the biggest thing now is how can you stand out, you know? Yeah. Because I love it being a saturated world, because I don't know, maybe I love a challenge, but I want to see, you know, out of all these people here, how can I be different? You know, everybody's doing this. Okay, now everybody has access to distribution. How can I be different now? You know, and, you know, that might be going outside of music as far as acting, or as side as, you know, what you can do for your fans. You know what I mean? You know, performing live and those type of aspects. So I still feel like, you know, even when I was 5 years ago, it was still a very saturated market, and even 10 years ago, sure. You know, everybody loves to make music, you know what I'm saying? And everybody wants to be a star. I think everybody wanted to be a star since they were a kid. So that's always just kind of been a thing. I think just the way that the industry moves is kind of more of the different thing. You know what I'm saying? You know, like I said, nowadays, social media is almost pretty much what holds a lot of these yes and no's, you know what I mean? Which is really cool, because back then, you know, you just had, you know, guys with a suit and group discussions of them just, nodding their head yes and no. Now it's more of a, I can put a really cool dance out with my video and it can do great. And what happens is now it's a flip approach. Now the guys with the suits are like, okay, we need whatever the trendy thing is because that's what the people are liking. It's not about what we like anymore and what we decided at headquarters. It's this is the way that the people react to it, and we have to get on board. Yeah. So it kind of goes both ways. It definitely goes both ways.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, and I totally agree, because I think you put out a video of your music, and then using things like TuneCore, for example, you can put your music on TikTok so that other people can use it. And that's where the value really comes in, then when people start sharing it. And I totally agree. That's when you start to build that leverage with the industry. And we kind of touched on that before. The suits start looking at you and being like, okay, how do we work together? How do we work with you rather than how do you work with us?
Exactly.
And I think that's the really exciting part about what's going on at the moment. I totally agree as well. I think every generation thinks it was easier and now it's harder. But I think it's just a new set of challenges and how to approach that. Right. I was going to ask, I mean, I see like you're doing a lot of stuff on TikTok with finger drumming, and a lot of people want to see that creative process and that realness. Has that helped you to build your career as an artist?
Oh, for sure. 110%.
110%. Even your business as well, I guess, as a finger drummer, a teacher of finger drumming, that must have really helped as well.
Yeah. But that, finger drumming, teaching it didn't come probably 2 years ago. I've probably started the business about 2 years ago. I talked to, actually, I don't know if you heard of, but Kato on the track. He's like doing really great right now too as well. And I had a big talk with him because like I said, I was in IT. I worked in IT for about like 4 or 5 years. I'm a big nerd. I love computers and stuff like that. But, I was very interested. I knew I was young, and I knew that, I had my certificates and everything I need to go far into IT. But I was like, you know what? I'm still young. And if music doesn't work out, that's always something you can always do. IT is not going anywhere. It's only advancing, right? So I'm like, while I'm young, I was like, let me take advantage of and, do this thing called following your dreams. And I contacted Kato, and I already had a decent following at the time. And I told him, I said, hey man, I got this. I feel like, I'm in there, and this is I'm hitting him up after, in the middle of me actually working, did commercials with Gap. Like I'm actually in Gap commercials, McDonald's commercials. Like I'm actually doing really big placements. And it was kind of funny because I was working in this IT setting, office job every day, but need to call off because I needed to go to Amsterdam and go shoot a commercial or do something. They're like, yo, what's going on? So I knew something was like, okay, I kind of want to put this job thing on hold and focus on the music, because it's like I am kind of doing largely things just to kind of be working a normal job. So I talked to him, and the biggest thing that I told him was, weirdly, I didn't really want to sell beats. And I think a lot of people still get on me about that. I have a BeatStars account for selling beats, but that's not always been my biggest motive. I was kind of like performing, but I told him, I was like, I still want to make a living off this. And he kind of picked my brain and asked me what I like to do, and with his, he ran a camp at the time. He had a big Kato camp, all his producers and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool. And he was like, if you have a big influence, why don't you do things for your users? That's going to be where your money and your benefits are going to be, is your people, getting your people involved. So I didn't want to obviously just copy his idea and say, okay, I'm going to start a camp too. But I did think, okay, well, I am very good at this, and I'm not a selfish person to go, I don't want to teach anybody my craft. If anything, I learned that the more you share, the more you receive. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay. So I was like, let me try this thing out. And, fast forward 2 years later, here I am, and got my LLC, and this is a full-time. Now, there was a lot of a lot of bumps in the road. I had to kind of, I had to Uber up sometimes and kind of to kind of close some of the ends. But I have like one last Uber call. I have one last video. I still have it. Is when I was sitting in the back of my car when I was like waiting for a ride for Uber, and I was like, because I was like, I can't do this. You know, what made me quit Uber was I drove a really nice car at the time, and everybody who would get in, they would be like, is this Uber Black? Because I didn't order Uber Black. They would freak me out, and I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, you know, I'm just, you know, and I'm just figuring it out right now. You know, don't judge me. It's okay. You know, so I'm driving Uber, and 2 times people were like, hey, aren't you that dude that does the beats? And I'm like, I'm driving these people, and I'm like, yeah. And it's just like, you know, and they almost felt like this is a prank or something. And I'm like, nah, this is not a prank. I need this. And you know, it was one of those things where after I dropped them off, I remember I sat in the back seat and I put my phone up on my on the passenger head rail, like lifted up, and I like set it there like a phone dock. And I made like the most humble video in the world, just like, look guys, I want to start a finger drumming academy. I want to teach you guys how to finger drum, if not better than me. I mean, just the most humble video. I'm just sitting in the back seat because I don't want to do this anymore. And literally this academy filled up within like an hour. It literally filled up. Yeah, and it was like a big pride thing too as well. And I was like, man, that's what happens when you actually just release and you're just very genuine and not trying to, you know, just that whole euphoric thing of, if I want to quit my job and follow my dreams, I have to make this money. You know what I mean? The money is going to come. It's going to be some up and downs. But I feel like if you do it for the right reasons, then stuff starts coming into play. So
that's so true, isn't it? It's so real as well. It's so nice to hear that experience because so many people watching live and watching when we play back are going to be in that position. And it's a really tough call. And you have to kind of have that innate belief in yourself or not even like high levels of confidence, but just it's my passion. I need to go for it.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely scary. It's definitely scary, but you know, you gotta do it.
But it's awesome. Also, like, it's the reality of balance. Like, you can't go, like, you still need to live. You need the financials to live and build stuff. So you can't just go full in unrealistically. Like, you did it realistically, which I think is the reality that a lot of people don't end up talking about. Which is awesome. It's super exciting.
We've had some good comments come through. That's a fantastic story from Gessler on YouTube, and then I think it's Kane. K9 is it? Yeah. I've tried, but as someone with no experience making beats, it's very difficult to get used to. But I guess I could just learn though. Thanks for your response and for being part of this. So thanks for all your comments coming through. Some really good feedback. And people watching all over the globe. We've got about 5 minutes left. So, is there kind of any more questions you want to ask Jimmy, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of advice, I'm sure there's a lot of creators here, a lot of artists who are struggling to finish their music or, you know, marketing their music in general. Any nuggets of gold that you can share with them that you found useful that they would also?
I would say to those, and it's not graded by a scale on where you are in your career, but I would definitely always humble yourself and just know that even, you know, I'm not going to shout them out because I am kind of in here with some of these industry guys, but I know for a fact, and I've heard it, that some of these songs don't all get released, or, you know, they're not released in the best light all the time. So with that being said, just put your music out. Don't hold back. Put the music out. If it's something that makes you feel really good to have it all the way complete, then do that, because I don't want to take that away from you. But definitely don't hold yourself. Just like Russ. I mean, Russ put out like a new song every single week. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Almost like a new album or something like that every single week. Something crazy like that. And I guarantee you, all his songs weren't mixed all the way to par. But he's like one of the biggest independent artists out there because this man had volume, and he'll tell you that in his story too as well. This man had mad volume. So that's my biggest advice: is don't hold back. Put that music out. You know what I'm saying? Get it decently mixed. One thing that's really nice about the time that we live in is a lot of the sounds and a lot of the plugins and microphones and software, they're so formatted like good already. Like I'm coming from Audacity when you had to like worry about getting out the hiss and stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're not in an era where we have to worry about taking hiss out of mics and getting stuff. And mics already sound really good out the box. Interfaces are sounding really good out the box. Computer softwares are already just doing everything good out the box. So it's really a lot of gain staging and stuff nowadays, and you know, just following your EQ rules.
Definitely. I think the Russ example is great. I mean, we could see, I mean, he works with TuneCore and he's a big proponent, but it was amazing to see every month on the month he's putting out a track and you see it grow. But then one day it just shoots up. And that track is not, again, to what you're saying, it's not better or worse than any of those other tracks. It's just the consistency of the work over years, every month putting out a new track, working with people, building that network, and engaging with your audience.
Right.
It will pay off. It will pay off eventually.
For sure.
So yeah, I think Russ is a great example of that work ethic and putting stuff out consistently that can pay off.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a comment that come in. I don't know if that's something you want to kind of look at, Dan. About the kind of volume of revenue coming in. Yeah, can you see those?
So, Eden said Austria is saying from the last album 4 million plays on Spotify and she pocketed $2,000 about the cost of a decent synth. This is, I think a lot of this happens. These stories are very, very prominent. I think a lot of the time the issue is with the record label. A lot of the time pocketing most of that money. 4 million streams should pay out about 20K ish US. And so I think that's what the beauty of TuneCore is. You're pocketing 100% of that revenue. Yes, a label has put up money to grow you and to market you, and they need to recoup that money. But if you're doing it independently and you're using the tools like what Jimmy's saying, using social media, which is what a lot of these majors are doing to promote artists, you can do it yourself and you could pocket the full amount of money. And I think that's part of what this independent narrative that's becoming more prominent is all about. It's in the UK especially, you've got the government inquiring about streaming services and figuring out why. I think a lot of the issue lies with the major record labels and the deals historically that they've fought. There has been no alternative, so artists have had to do them. So I think that narrative is speedily changing.
Good, and that's the point of making it more accessible and more transparent.
Yeah, and Jimmy's perfect example of that, of what can happen independently releasing your music.
Exactly. Right, well, that's a good place to end on, because it's good to show that that's the point of TuneCore and other distribution platforms, is the transparency and the kind of the ball is in your court as musicians and as producers. And I want to thank Beats by J Black, Jimmy, for coming on board with this chat.
Awesome.
Really
Thank
good stories. Where can people find you on your socials?
At Beats by J Black, just like it's spelled right here, just Beats by J Black.
Perfect.
Like I said, I have the Finger Drumming Academy too, if you're interested in sharpening your skills in finger drumming on the beat pad.
Check it out. The videos are hugely impressive.
The website is scrolling along the bottom there now, so you can check that out. And Dan, thank you so much for giving us all the information and your experience and the insight into distribution and how it can work for people.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Lovely. Take it easy, everyone. Take care.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.